Hello, hello. Uta here with some last coreopsis. I cut them as buds. They have survived a couple of frosts, and I think they are probably my last flowers. Uh, so, I do want to say thank you to those of you who expressed concern that I put a photo of my mother in her house up on the community section of the channel here, and I mentioned that I had been molested by a child neighbor who is about 4 or 5 years older than me, and I found him. He is a dentist and he lives in Ohio. And I was able to get his address, and against the caution of some of you, I am writing him what he did to me because uh, I know that I was 5 based on the clothing and the dates I have from old photos and stuff. And that means that he would have been about 10. And that's completely inappropriate for a 10-year-old boy to be sticking his hands into a 5-year-old girl's pants. And I really wanted him and his wife to get this seemingly holiday card where I'm explaining how he affected my whole childhood because after he did this a second time, I made sure to avoid him. There was one time in a snow fort in the winter and then the following summer. It's funny how I remember those clothes so well. I had this green hand-me-down parka, which I called my Eskimo coat, with mismatched but still green hand-me-down snow pants. And that's what I was wearing. And I remember being so surprised. How did he get his hand in there? And his hand was cold. And and then the following summer, I was wearing this little plaid, classic, very early 60s outfit of a top and shorts, which did match, probably again a hand me down, but they really did match because there was a strip of the same plaid from the shorts that was across the front of the top. And I remember it wasn't across the whole front and back of this little top. I think we called them summer sets or short sets or something like that. And I was sort of bothered by the fact that the little plaid strip that was the same material as the pants didn't go onto the back part too. In my child mind, I thought that doesn't make sense. And he had once again stuck his hands in my pants when I was playing with his younger sister in their basement. It was a board game. It might have been sort of pretend Monopoly. And she went upstairs. He realized that I was down there alone, and he came and did that, suddenly. And both times he asked me if I wanted to touch his parts. And I was frozen, and I think I said no, or I somehow, after a moment of being frozen, I somehow got away. The reason that I decided it's important, I didn't put my return address, and he probably doesn't remember my last name, although he could find some way to look it up. Um, I am afraid that he might have continued this behavior into his adult life as a dentist. And I just want him to be called on that. So that's what I did. And I'm not opening up any kind of communication with him. Someone was worried about that, and someone mentioned a concern that he would think I'm going to call the police on him. But he was a child when that happened, and guess what? The statute of limitations is long gone on that. It's been more than 60 years. It's been about 63 years. So that's sort of my tale because one of the reasons I feel this way is, you know, parents need to guide their children not to touch other children underneath their clothes. I've had to deal with that as a teacher in the classroom. So, what I really am uh, thinking about is the extreme unwellness of the crazy Instagram and TikTokers who are threatening Nancy Mace. And as well, yeah, they're threatening that they're talking about firearms, and they're talking about if I saw you in the women's room, you know, pretty violent fantasies. I hope that uh, actually that the FBI is getting involved and figuring out who this is, because they should be getting a knock on the door instead of someone like Uta Hagen for putting out campaign literature, vote no on Proposal 1. Oh my goodness. If you don't know that story, you'll have to go back into a previous video. So I wanted to continue, though, on the wellness checklist, because I would refer those dudes who think that they somehow have a female soul and are using their female soul to threaten a woman. I want to make it clear that they are not well, and maybe if they got outside for a walk every day and did some actual gardening work outside, even if it was as a volunteer in a cemetery or in your elderly neighbor's garden or something, maybe you wouldn't be expressing these violent fantasies publicly. And so, if I have saved our dude Paul from drifting into this kind of violent fantasy and this kind of self-harm, then I think this is something to be really celebrated and further discussed. So I am just going to read to you some of what I wrote back to him. I think it was the third time. He had mentioned that he had felt like crying, and so he cried, and he had mentioned to me that his mother had had a miscarriage of the fetus that he had been told was his baby sister when he was about 6 or 7 years old. So, of course, this was, a trauma for the whole family that they lived through. And we know from Richard Hoskins, who was an adult detransitioner, that the reason he started ideating a female persona, he said later, was that he had had a series of deaths of people close to him, and he was going through some kind of a grief process. And what I think is too bad is we only know a little bit about that from the interviews he's done. And I'm trying to remember, his name might be Hoskins or Hopkins. And he was one of those people who took his own money and went to Thailand and got all the surgeries. So he's really in a state of deep regret. Probably he was online telling about this about 2 or so years ago. So it didn't surprise me that Paul mentioned this family grief of a female entity. And so I didn't go into it a lot, didn't ask him to write more to me. I really felt that my job as a person just being consulted. He wrote to me originally saying that he was afraid he might be an autogynephile and he didn't want to be. So, and then at the end, when he decided he's really not doing this anymore and he's not going to worry about it anymore, he said that he believes he had these ideas about having female body parts and looking in the mirror and seeing himself as kind of female as a result of early exposure to pornography. Now, one of the things I think is really important dealing with these young teens is, I would say, let them tell you without asking them too much about sexual orientation, sexual experiences, or exposure to pornography. Focus instead on normal life and wellness, because sometimes therapy, which I wasn't doing, of course, he was asking questions and regarded me as a person who knows a little bit about this topic. Um, but sometimes therapists actually cause further rumination. And cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, is actually much better for switching the gears in your rumination process or thought process so that you can kind of get on with life. Um, and, sometimes when someone has died or something, we want to think about them and remember them, and memories come up and things like that. And I always say, write the good memories down, write the beautiful memories down. The other things, try to put a tune into your mind, focus on something else, get some work done outside, and let those negative feelings just start to slowly evaporate. Don't over remember. So this is what I said to Paul. Lots of grief is coming to the surface. It's good to let it out as long as you refocus and regain your composure. Somehow I have a sense there are some childhood details about the lost sister, and your unconscious may be sending out those core feelings. I think the bit about your left hand is a manifestation, perhaps, of something from the past. He said that he found his face and his left hand to be kind of female. So we can make conjecture about what the left hand might have been doing if he was watching pornography, but I'm not going to ask about it specifically. I am not Ray Blanchard, and I think that Ray Blanchard has a great deal of over self-esteem about what he has done. Because I just looked now at one of his research projects from about 2008 with, I think this guy's name is Max Freund, and they only had 59 subjects in their study. So now with 64 women, responses to my survey, 20 questions to ask a trans widow, I now have more subjects in mine than that guy, PhD, et cetera, peer-reviewed in his. Oh, by the way, I was recently turned down from publishing anything about what I'm doing because I don't have a PhD in psychology. I gave them a piece of my mind. Let's see. I said not for you to get worked up trying to remember, but just a logical, rational understanding. That's a possible good forward path. Good to know you're eating better. Any chance you can help with cooking around home and increase your nutritional intake? You might not realize it, but you are working on reconnecting mind and body. I mentioned something about that I do not suggest that he paint the fingernails on his left hand, which is something that a gender therapist would have suggested to him. Try it out, see how it feels. Oh, and by the way, I am relatively certain, although I don't have any proof, that on the first appointment that Nettie went to see Dr. Wheeler, who is now not certified any longer as a family and marital counselor in New York State, I am rather certain, based on what I've gathered from this gender therapy field, that he showed up dressed, wearing makeup, etc., and he needed her to affirm him that way. It wasn't like she could have possibly backed up and said, oh, yes, well, let's go through the wellness checklist. Before we go into any of these, feelings about your body, let's find out how much time do you spend outside and how are things with your parents, etc. Okay. So, my guess, this is what I'm saying to Paul. My guess is you will feel more whole as you go about reading hard copy books. And it could have been paperback copies too. I just meant not online because I was giving him advice about not spending much time online. And in fact, one thing I'm saying for parents is, and I would just do this to make sure that your kids are going to sleep, make them give you the cell phone to charge in your bedroom overnight. Same with laptops. I think that if you have a desktop kind of computer, it should be in a common area, not the child's bedroom. It's too tempting. They get addicted, and they especially get addicted to gaming. And the whole gaming scene is not good for them. They pick these avatars. They start to pick a female avatar. It's brainwashing and indoctrination, and 2 + 2 = 5, 1984, Animal Farm. Okay. I really do like this Primal Fitness program, and he actually said he did get his parents to pay for it, and he was doing it by the end of our 6 weeks of communication. You could even just look it up and get ideas from their short demo videos. They do some interesting work involving creeping around on the floor, which makes limbs and abdominals stronger. It connects to a set of movements from early life. So it's really a deep mind-body thing. I always suggest push-ups. I try to do a set of 15 every day. Okay, I've got that to do still. And abdominal work. The connection to the solar plexus, which is above the upper abs, where the ribs are, and the pelvic lower abs, a connection between them, will reduce stress and serve as a mind-body connection. This has to do with the vagus nerve and kind of bypassing stress that's through the vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve from the brain down into the gut. And so if you have a feeling, a sensation of strength in your abs, all the way up to the ribs and all the way down to your pubic bone, that is a satisfying, contented sensation, and it will help you to refocus if there's stress in the vagus nerve. Okay. I also suggest start talking to your parents about small, inconsequential, everyday things. I have a sense you're off in your room away from them. This is common at your age, but please consider how your parents know that you will soon be an adult and the time with you will decrease as you create your adult life. I was lucky at your age as I did a lot of gardening with my father and cooking with my mother. Even if there are aspects of their personalities that you find annoying, it's worth reflecting on what makes them tick. And I think that this is actually very important for teenagers because it is naturally a very, very self-centered, narcissistic time. Your body is changing from a child to what is going to be your adult self. And of course, I mean, when I was pregnant, I was, of course, absolutely focused on myself and the changes in my body. And oh my goodness, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so there are times in your life when you are, very over-focused on your own body and what's going on. But we always have to remember to focus on those around us and always try to be helpful because that is healthy. I hope that more book reading means less time on social media, I said to Paul, and no time on Reddit or TikTok or Tumblr or any of those. And how about your room? Now I sound like Dr. Jordan Peterson. Clean and organize your room, keeping in mind that old toys and possessions you've grown out of are best given away or put away, or if they're special, given a place on a shelf to bring up happy memories. And what I'm trying to do here is help him to grow into his present self that is no longer a child. It will reduce the confusion. This way, you are also practicing for life as an adult. I go through phases of letting clutter build up and then cleaning and organizing. We have to do this all of our lives. And now I'm going to see if my camera will give you any sense of the woods outside. A little bit. And I'm almost done planting my daffodils. I think I planted 300 daffodils this year, or bulbs in total, because I planted these kind of extra large snowdrops and crocus also. So my suggestion is, if you are finding out about some cross-sex ideating teen or adult in your extended family, and they're going into how they're going to a therapist or something like that, just say something like, well, have they gone over the wellness checklist with you? I heard about this from this YouTuber, Uta Hagen, and then spell it out for them. And you get my YouTube channel even just by Googling Uta Hagen. So be well. And as Irene of Irene Brit USA, who's doing a great job, do go to her channel. As she says at the end of hers, God willing, we'll see each other the next time.